In May 1945, with the ruins of Berlin still smoldering, Harry Truman sat down at his desk in the White House and wrote a private note that would determine the fate of American secrets. He was looking at the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS. These were the spies, the saboteurs, and the Jedburgh teams that had helped win World War II. But Truman didn't see heroes. He saw a threat. In his diary, he wrote, "We want no Gestapo or secret police. The FBI is tending in that direction. They are dabbling in sex life scandals and plain blackmail." Truman was terrified. He believed that a secret intelligence service operating in peacetime was incompatible with democracy. So on September 20th, 1945, he did something unthinkable. He signed Executive Order 9621 and dissolved the OSS. He fired the spies. For the next 20 months, as the Iron Curtain descended across Europe and the Soviet Union consolidated its power, the United States, the only nuclear-armed nation on Earth, was flying blind. We had no central intelligence service, and when Truman finally realized his mistake and created the CIA in 1947, he didn't ask for James Bond. He asked for a newspaper. Part 1. Introduction. Welcome to Distilled. Today we are distilling the origins of the Central Intelligence Agency. We are going to look at how a bureaucratic compromise morphed into a global covert action machine. We are distilling the book The Very Best Men by Evan Thomas. It's the story of the four friends, Ivy League socialites and Wall Street lawyers who built the agency's secret arm. But we aren't just telling war stories. We are going to cross-reference this book with declassified documents like NSC 10/2 and the academic journals of intelligence and national security to answer a simple question. How did the good guys end up overthrowing democracies? This is the story of hubris, paranoia, and the accidental invention of the deep state. Part 2. Synopsis. Insight number 1. The CIA wasn't built by spies. It was built by socialites. If you walked into the CIA's temporary buildings on the National Mall in 1948, you wouldn't hear hushed whispers in Russian. You'd hear the clinking of cocktail glasses and the drawl of the American aristocracy. Evan Thomas calls them the Georgetown Set. These were men like Frank Wisner and Richard Bissell. They went to Groton, they went to Yale. They didn't just know each other, they were each other's best men at weddings. On Sunday afternoons, these men didn't sit in situation rooms. They gathered on the towpath of the C&O Canal in Georgetown. They would walk for miles, Wisner, Bissell, the columnist Joe Alsop, debating the fate of Western civilization while their children played nearby. It was an insular world. They believed they were the stewards of democracy, and because they were the very best men, the smartest, the wealthiest, the most connected, they believed they could fix the world. Frank Wisner is the protagonist of our tragedy. He was a Southern lawyer with manic energy. He ran the Office of Policy Coordination, the OPC. It sounds boring, but the OPC was the Department of Dirty Tricks. Wisner was obsessed with a metaphor, the Wurlitzer. Wisner described his network of assets as a mighty Wurlitzer organ. He believed he could press a key in Washington, release a propaganda story, fund a student group, and hear the tune play out in Rome, or Berlin, or Tokyo. He wanted to orchestrate a global symphony of anti-communism. But as we'll see, the Wurlitzer often played out of tune. Insight number 2. The hubris of the intellectual. Richard Bissell, who would later engineer the Bay of Pigs, represents the other side of this coin. He wasn't just smart, he was Yale economist smart. In college, he actually turned down membership in the secret societies like Skull and Bones because he didn't think they were intellectual enough. He believed that covert operations were like economic models. If you applied the right inputs, money, arms, propaganda, you would get the desired output, a coup, a revolution. This belief that intellect could conquer reality was the agency's original sin. They disdained the slow, boring work of espionage, stealing secrets. They wanted action. They wanted to roll back the Soviet Union, and this action bias led them into disaster. Part 3. The Deep Dive. That's the romantic version, the tragedy of the gentleman spy. Now let's look at the paperwork. Let's distill the raw data. There is a popular theory that the CIA went rogue, that these men were acting without the president's permission. You see this in movies all the time. But the documents tell a different story. Let's look at National Security Council Directive 10/2, NSC, signed in June 1948. This is the birth certificate of the dark side. It authorized covert operations, but it included a very specific clause. I'm going to read it because the language is chillingly precise. All activities which are so planned and executed that any U.S. government responsibility for them is not evident to unauthorized persons, and that if uncovered, the U.S. government can plausibly disclaim any responsibility for them. That is the official definition of plausible deniability. It wasn't a loophole the CIA invented. It was a direct order from the National Security Council. The government ordered the CIA to lie to them. This changes how we view history. Frank Wisner wasn't a rogue agent. He was doing exactly what the White House asked him to do, in a way that let the president keep his hands clean. Now let's address the legacy of ashes. You may have read Tim Weiner's Pulitzer-winning book, which claims the CIA was a total failure from day one. He quotes Eisenhower calling it a legacy of ashes. But let's fact-check that. Historians have gone back to the minutes of that meeting, January 5, 1961. Eisenhower did use the phrase legacy of ashes, but he wasn't talking about the CIA's covert ops. He was talking about the military intelligence organization, the fact that the Army, Navy, and Air Force couldn't stop fighting each other. He was complaining about Pentagon bureaucracy, not CIA incompetence. Context matters. However, incompetence did exist, and to see it, we have to look at Operation Valuable, also known as the Albanian Subversion. In 1949, Wisner and the British MI6 decided to overthrow the communist government of Albania. They thought it was the weak link in the Soviet chain. They recruited Albanian exiles, monarchists, rough mountain men, and trained them in Malta. They called them the Pixies. They parachuted these men into the Albanian mountains, expecting them to start a revolution. But the Soviets knew they were coming. Why? Because the British liaison officer was Kim Philby, the most famous Soviet mole in history. Philby passed the coordinates to the KGB. The Albanian secret police were waiting at the drop zones. They hunted the Pixies down with dogs. Almost all of them were captured, tortured, or killed. It was a bloodbath. This is the dark side of the action bias. Wisner kept sending men in, year after year, even as they disappeared. The Wurlitzer demanded a tune, even if the instrument was broken. Part 4. Application. So, we've distilled the history. What is the distillate for you? How does 1948 help you today? 1. Efficiency versus effectiveness. General Michael Hayden, a former CIA director, talks about this. Frank Wisner's operation was efficient. They trained agents, they dropped cargo, they spent their budget. They were very busy, but they were not effective. They achieved zero strategic goals. In your business, are you confusing motion with progress? Are you optimizing a process that shouldn't exist at all? 2. Secrets versus mysteries. This comes from Sherman Kent, the father of CIA analysis. A secret is a fact you can steal, like a competitor's pricing list or the number of warheads in a silo. A mystery is a future outcome, like will this product succeed or will North Korea invade? You cannot steal a mystery, you have to analyze it. Stop trying to find facts that will predict the future. Instead, use tactical ignorance. Accept what you cannot know and build a strategy that works regardless of the outcome. 3. The Red Team. The CIA failed in Albania and the Bay of Pigs because of groupthink. Everyone in the room was a white, male, Ivy League lawyer who lived in Georgetown. They all shared the same blind spots. To fix this, you need a red team. Appoint someone in your organization to be the devil's advocate. Their sole job is to destroy your plan. If your plan can survive the red team, it might survive the real world. Part 5. Conclusion. To distill it all down, the CIA wasn't a rogue elephant. It was a mirror. It reflected the best and worst of the American elite in the 20th century, their idealism, their brilliance, and their dangerous overconfidence. If you want to read the full text of NSC 10/2 or see the breakdown of the Legacy of Ashes fact-check, check the show notes. We've linked the papers. If you enjoyed this distillation, follow, subscribe, and hit the bell icon. Stay curious.